This is probably the most important thing and also the most challenging thing that I've come across in my search for forms of off-grid technology or off-grid solutions to living problems if, let's say, there's a power outage, a power down, grid failure, or let's say you just don't want to be on mains power. Okay, this is amazing. What the results I've got from this is staggering. Now you may have seen these before. I'll just show you the configuration, okay, just to clear things up. Just two flower pots, terracotta flower pots. Now terracotta is a form of ceramic, so essentially with two flower pots, ceramic flower pots, and a heat source, namely tea light candles, you've got yourself a ceramic heater. This is a radiant heater, not a convector. Make sure you understand what radiant heat does. It doesn't warm the air in a place and then the hot air warms up the things in the place. It warms up the things directly through the invisible light, which radiates from the radiant heat source. Some designs have not only one flower pot bolted onto another one, as you have here, but also have lots and lots and lots of nuts, bolts and washers bolted down the middle, and it's believed or explained that that's somehow a good thing for the design. I did not do that this evening. What I did was I just used 10 separate tea light candles. Okay, and I set fire to them all, and I rested my flower pot heater radiator on top of these little sauce pots. These little sauce pots I got as a pack of 6 from 99p stores. Okay, just tiny little sauce pots, that's all they are. And of course, so when you're having dinner, the idea is you put your tomato sauce and the rest of it in there, shove it on someone's plate, and then they got themselves a nice presentation, you know, whatever. But I thought I'd find enough grid use for them, and I have. Okay, maybe it took about 45 minutes for this thing to actually get really, you know, reasonably hot. But when it did get hot, my word, it was amazing. I was standing in that corner over there, okay, leaning up against the counter, smoking my electronic cigarettes. And the radiant heat on the calves of my legs was so hot, it was almost a little too hot, okay? I felt like I should turn around and do the back of my legs. It was like that. Really, it was like that. It felt, as far as radiant heat is concerned, no different to had I had a, let's say, a electric, proper infrared radiant heater. You know, one of those halogen things in my kitchen area. Instead, I have a couple of flower pots bolted together on sauce pots with 10 tea light candles, each one costing 2 pence, thereby having spent 20 pence on the energy for this one particular heater. It was absolutely staggering. The feeling of standing in the kitchen and it being noticeably warmer than anywhere else in my flat was so amazing, just from this one thing. And to touch it, yes, it passed the swear test, namely I couldn't prevent myself from swearing after touching it because it was that hot, you know. And of course most of the energy was coming off in the form of very real radiation. Remember the way that radiation works as a form of heating as opposed to convection. It doesn't warm the air in the place, it warms the things that the invisible light which comes out of the radiant surface touches. So to get the main benefits of it, you've got to be in line of sight with the radiant heat source, okay? But when I was in line of sight of it, I could actually feel it. It actually did it for me, okay? And I was even reaching this point of thinking about halfway through the burn time. Remember, it's about a 3.5 hour burn time for the candles. Maybe you could actually, you know, or I could actually replace my domestic heating with just a couple more of these. I was actually, because it was just so amazing how much power this thing was cranking out with those 10 tea light candles underneath it. But towards the end of the burn time, I came across a snag because the smell in the air of the burning wax was basically, you know, really rather nasty. Now I know I'm just using tea lights, okay, and maybe I thought to myself, because I was overpowering it, because I had 10 tea lights underneath it rather than just let's say the 3 candles that some people say you should have. Maybe the whole device was getting so hot it was maybe burning off some extra wax or somehow doing something negative. But that was the only real negative I actually felt in the device. So if I can MacGyver up some way in which I could use, let's say, my bioethanol, which either I buy or I make, as the source of power for the terracotta flower pot heater, or some other way of improving the air quality, then basically, you know, I'm there. Okay, we're talking about winter heating. Just get three setups like this, with a heat source of comparable power with 10 tea light candles, then basically I'm there. Now, Wikipedia says that the average heat given off by one candle is, or the heat given off by a normal modern candle is 80 watts. Another website I saw said that you know, a tea light, or tea lights themselves, are not made equal. Some of them give off 80 watts, some of them only give off 25 watts, or it could be anywhere in the spectrum between the two. So on a pessimistic level, this thing was a 250 watt heater, which doesn't sound all that special, taking into account we all need, you know, 1.5 kilowatt electric heaters to keep our place, you know, reasonable. But those are convectors, not radiators. This is a radiator, not a convector. If you get my drift, there's a difference. And on top of that, this is not thermostatically controlled, which means that it'll just carry on going hotter and hotter and hotter until the heat input, namely the candles or alcohol stoves or whatever it is you've got, which is causing the heat, is finally burned out. Okay? So, on the optimistic side of things, it could have been an 800 watt radiant heater. And the wattage itself is not necessarily descriptive of the efficiency, because there's some people who get these like halogen heaters, which only have each bar consumes 400 watts. But it gives off the same radiance heat as those old-fashioned wire coil 1 kilowatt bars. You see where I'm coming from, okay? So the efficiency could be another issue, as opposed to like the actual numbers of the whole thing. All right, but this thing, you know, did its stuff. I was unhappy about the air quality. Really was unhappy about the air quality towards the end of the burn time. But this being a radiant heater, there's nothing wrong with opening a window ajar and letting in some cold air, because essentially you're not relying upon the temperature of the air to keep you warm. You're relying upon the light, the invisible light, which is radiating from your source to provide you with your bodily heat. Obviously you wouldn't want too much, but some ventilation would probably be a good thing if you're using this configuration with this particular heat source. Okay, that much I want to point out right now. Unless of course there's another way of making sure the flower pots get the heat without there being some kind of extra, you know, toxicity from the burning of the wax, or maybe there's a better quality of candles that you can lay your hands on. I don't know. It just means that there's more research to be done, but I'm sure you can understand how excited I am feeling about this one particular principle of using this, you know, this technology. And I mean, in a serious power cut situation, then yeah, having 2 of these things going, each with 10 candles underneath it, I would do it, because I'd rather do that than freeze to death. Okay, but I would still need some ventilation to stop myself from you know, asphyxiating on the wax fumes in the air. It could have even been a vaporization problem that was going on, what with the heat from this vaporizing some of the wax, making it, you know, fume out. I mean, I don't know what was going on there. But, you know, the wax in the air was quite heavy, and I didn't like that at all. But that only came about, like, more than halfway through the burn time. Okay? So I just wanted to share that with you, let you know that there is, you know, these flower pots here, there's something magical about them when it comes to possibility of off-grid heating. And so it's got to be seriously explored more, because there's ways of doing it. Remember, it's like, even with this smelly, waxy, fumey method, I was spending 20 pence for the 3.5 hours worth of burn time. Okay? 20 pence. And it was reasonable, and If this was like some kind of, you know, a 3-day blackout, the gas was out, the electric was out, I'd use this. You know, breakfast, lunch and supper, I'd use it. But I want to have better air quality, because if I want to go completely off-grid, I want to go completely self-sufficient, and I want to use a heating system that will do it for me, I've got to find a way. Now, the ethanol fireplace I've got here, absolutely brilliant, but this is of course a convector system. Now, I could try and find a way of using one of the ethanol burning tins or something similar to it, and suspending the flower pots safely a substantial height above the flame, but I'll have to find a way of doing that so it won't fall over and be highly dangerous. So I'm not recommending you do that at this stage, because I want to make sure that there is a way of doing it safely. But we're getting there. Off-grid domestic heating, using stuff which comes from a garden centre. Apparently flower pot heaters were used during the Second World War. The British would hide in their Anderson shelters using a combination of or a variety of heater made with flower pots and candles. So none of this stuff is new. It's just a question of me trying to turn this into something which is a reliable, decent, everyone can use it all the time kind of thing, which is new, I think, in my opinion. I could be wrong, I don't know. But this is mind-blowing. This is seriously mind-blowing stuff. I am excited.